Mic was off. All right. What's going on, everybody? Marcus Ely here for Status Coup. I got some amazing stories for y'all today. Well, not really amazing, like fantastic news or anything, but you know, white supremacy and Kamala Harris messing up. Again, smash that like button. Become a member to Status Coup. We're trying to get to 500 members with our member drive. And we're currently at 456, I believe. I didn't get the graphic yet. Sorry. I'll have the graphic for you next time I live stream. I believe that'll be Wednesday. I'm scheduled to live stream with you all. But for right now, let's get directly into it. Those of you that watched me cover the issue with the FBI protecting white people know that basically protecting white supremacists, know that I'm really passionate about dismantling the systems of oppression such as white supremacy, and I found this story for you guys that kind of ties into that. So as far as the 2020 census citizenship question goes, the United States Supreme Court is expected to rule shortly in the case of the Department of Commerce versus New York, a critical legal battle over the addition of a citizenship question to the 2020 U.S. Census. The Trump administration and the Republican Party have pushed hard on the idea of collecting citizenship information from U.S. residents, claiming the move is not intended to be harmful and that it simply represents a bid to return to an earlier census status quo. A longtime Republican operative named Thomas Hofeller, now deceased, was hired by a major GOP donor to study the impact of drawing congressional district lines based not on the number of residents, but on the number of voting age citizens living in those districts. Every person living in the United States, whether or not they are eligible to vote, has the right to be represented in Congress. Hofeller's 2015 study, which focused on the state of Texas, concluded that districts based on voting age citizens would not be advantageous to Republicans and non-Hispanic whites. And that one way to archive this change would be to include a citizenship question on the census. That was a quote. And all of this was from, this is coming from TruthDig, last week, I want to say last Thursday. They're basically saying that they're putting the citizenship question. This is Thomas Hofeller, who is, the New York Times called him the Michelangelo of gerrymandering, the architect of partisan political maps that cemented the party's dominance across the country. So this guy said in a report, a 2015 study, that putting a citizenship question on the U.S. Census would be advantageous to Republicans and non-Hispanic whites. Basically, what they're trying to do is not, the goal isn't to get people to get illegal immigrants, because they can't get the information. But they know that folks that are undocumented coming into this country are going to be scared to put that information in writing anywhere. So the goal is to scare them from putting information in on the census. And this way, there'll be a shortage of Latinx people filling out the census, and thus that'll cause a cascading problem down the line. And it will result in them being less and less represented in Congress, because they're not counted in the census, and when you're not counted in the census, you're not represented in Congress. The piece goes on to say a new study by the Urban Institute on the U.S. Census estimates there would be a total population net undercount of 1.22% as a result of the citizenship question. That amounts to nearly 4 million people who are disproportionately Latino, immigrant, or related to immigrants who will likely be undercounted in the 2020 census. So they're going to get 4 million people not even counted in those communities. That this is how it sounds minuscule. It sounds like a little bit, but this is how they chip away. This is how Republicans will cut off their own arm to own the libs and uphold white supremacy. Period. That's what they will do. And this is just more proof of that. Everything Republicans have done has been evidence of them wanting to hold up white supremacy. And a lot of y'all are probably looking at this saying, this guy's engaging in identity politics. Here we go with identity. I'm sorry. This is them engaging identity politics. I'm just calling it out. Number one. Number two, identity politics is a term that was created by white supremacists to get people of color to shut up. So if you want to call out folks specifically focusing on issues of color, that's fine. You can do that. And you want to say that, oh, well, they may be hiding behind this to not talk about class. Also, fine, have that discussion. But at the same time, let's be cognizant of the language we're using. Words have power. If we're going to be upset with folks using the terms cultural Marxists, we also need to be checking the term identity politics, because that's the word genesis that has its genesis and roots in white supremacy and in them telling people of color to shut up. And that's not to say that I don't stand in solidarity with white folks that are not class privileged. And white folks that are poor and working people, because there are poor and working white people. They do exist, and they need to be acknowledged, and we need to be in solidarity with them. But at the same time, it's a both and. You know what I mean? Like, we don't leave behind issues of class to deal with issues of race, and we don't leave behind issues of race to deal with issues of class. You deal with them both at the same time. It's both and. We can't do, and neither to the detriment of the other. I'm not gonna. Like, in the case, we're going to get to Kamala Harris in a second, but I'm not going to prop up Kamala Harris because she's a black woman just because having a black woman in that office would be important. Well, there's other issues with that besides her being just a black woman and a black face on white supremacy. But that aside, let's just assume she was perfectly fine. I'm not going to put a black woman in a place high up just so she can be as classist as everyone else that's been there before. That's also not okay. Plenty of other issues with Kamala Harris. We will get to those in a minute. But yeah, it's just, this is what we're dealing with in 2019, the year of our Lord. No. But in 2019, we still are dealing with this. You know what I mean? Women got the right to vote 100 years ago. Black people just got equal rights 50 years ago. A little over 50 years ago. And they still gerrymandering. It's 2019 and we still dealing with this. And you wonder why black people are bringing this stuff up. Like, clearly, they kill us in the streets. How you think they get away with that? Stuff like this. How you think they get away with Cajun kids? Stuff like this, because they disenfranchise you. You have been disenfranchised. This is how they get away with this stuff. Obama and them, sure, lost 1,000 seats. You're right. Gerrymandering had a lot to do with that. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget that these Republicans are incredibly Machiavellian and, again, will cut off their own arm to get whatever they need to get. All right, so we're going to go to Kamala Harris now. In this one, this is a doozy. So this is coming from The Intercept, Lee Fang at The Intercept. Just 6 months before Kamala Harris took office, a U.S. Supreme Court decision overturned California law that had retroactively eliminated the statute of limitations for criminal prosecution of child molestation cases. That shifted the focus to holding predators among the clergy accountable through civil cases and through a broader effort to bring attention to predators who had been shielded by the church. It went from Terrence Hallinan, this is the prior DA, going 100 miles an hour, full speed ahead after the Catholic Church, to Kamala Harris, absolutely nothing, and taking it backwards 100 miles an hour, said Joe Pistelli, a sexual assault survivor who a jury found had molested as a student while attending Cecilian College Preparatory, a Catholic high school in Richmond, California. So, before we go a little further, I just want to stop right there. Basically, what we have with Kamala Harris is that it's being alleged that she's protecting Catholic priests and their assault by not pursuing holding them accountable. And y'all know, like, of the centrists, Kamala was my favorite before this. Like, this is like, no, she been 12. And, like, I don't like any centrists at all. But my thought was, if there's one I could stand, give me Kamala Harris. Not no more. Not after this. I still didn't want any of them. But basically what we're dealing with is a situation where this Supreme Court decision comes down. And after the Supreme Court decision came down, we had a situation where they needed to go from pursuing the cases via regular criminal court to trying to pursue the cases in civil court. So it's like you can't really get them to go to jail, but hey, maybe you can at least hit them in their pocketbook. And in order to do that, according to the story that Lee Fong and The Intercept put out, she needed to release the files to people. And Harris did not do that. She did not release those files. Dominic DeLuca, I am going to pronounce this name wrong. I cannot pronounce this place. Burlingame, California resident who says he was raped by a local priest when he was 12 years old, also said he was shocked that Harris declined to aggressively pursue clergy abuse cases and refused to release the files. Quote, I remember Kamala Harris, said DeLuca. She didn't want to have any meetings, he went on. She wanted the public to think this is an issue that happened years ago, that it doesn't happen anymore. Let's just move on. End quote. So, yeah, this is some pretty tough stuff coming out against Kamala Harris. Like, she just wanted folks to move on, and she hasn't addressed it since. So that list of reasons to not like Kamala Harris is getting real long. The Roman Catholic Church is very powerful, and this is the Intercept piece again, and I think that they didn't want to step on any toes, especially in San Francisco, said DeLuca, citing the influence of former Archbishop William Levada, who oversaw the archdiocese when Harris was district attorney. Harris's presidential campaign did not respond to multiple requests for comment from the Intercept. Mike Brown, director of communications for the San Francisco Archdiocese, said that his office has cooperated with every district attorney and attorney general for requests for records every time. Brown said he did not believe that the Archdiocese attempted to influence the Harris decision not to release the clergy abuse files. He added that it was not his place to comment on her decisions. Quote, what was in Kamala Harris's head, he said, I don't think I have any way of knowing that. End quote. So at this point, it's safe to assume with Kamala Harris that she is going to protect the rich and powerful, and even to the extent of abuses, at the detriment of, or to the detriment of the poor and working people, of the vulnerable, especially when we're talking about children. Like, release them dang files. Ain't no excuse for that. Release them files. Period. Release them files. That's not hard. Like, y'all know I was the main one upset with Pete Buttigieg when he refused to take the call from the mother when her son had died. This is the same thing. You can't, like, the dude said he tried to have meetings with her. She wouldn't even take meetings with them. I'm sorry, y'all, nah. Like, there's the issue of, like, the list is long. It's a list, and there's a pattern, if you noticed in these lists. Kamala Harris sides with the powerful and the rich over the vulnerable and the poor every time. Like, just through these actions, you can just see the pattern. There's the Mnuchin and the old grandmother that got foreclosed on over like $20 or like 20 cents, something ridiculously minuscule, a small amount of money. And he foreclosed, and instead of taking him to jail, she was like, no, I'm not going to prosecute that. And then there was the issue of taking the parents to jail over the kids being truant. So again, siding with the system's, you know what I mean, punishing the poor for being poor, basically. And then this. And the list goes on, really. It's just, nah, bruh. And I was one of the main ones that was like, if there's anybody that's going to piss Trump off, it's going to be a black woman that's a child of immigrants that is also part Indian, part Islander. Like, yeah, no, she's perfect to upset Trump, and she would murder him in debates. Yeah, those things still stand, but at the same time, like, is it worth all this other stuff that's going to come with it? You have to ask yourself that question, and for me, the answer is no. Period. Sorry, the answer is no. I don't know where I rank her as far as all of the centrists go, but frankly, I don't care at this point. It's really, I understand a lot of y'all that are Bernie or bust. As far as the primary goes, yeah, Bernie's that dude. He's clearly the best one for me, by far. But Elizabeth Warren has good policies too, but the reason I kind of roll my eyes at Elizabeth Warren is not only because we're talking, she was 47 when she changed from being a Republican to a Democrat. And she did get, like, she's got some serious progressive chops, though. Like, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau got back billions of dollars, or at least hundreds of millions for consumers from banks. So that's like, that's a serious thing. Like, she's got serious things done, but Bernie Sanders has proven he knows how to use the bully pulpit better. And he's proven over a very long period of time that he knows, or rather he stands by these issues, and he's been consistent over all this time. So I really, really like Elizabeth Warren, but I still I got questions. I clearly prefer Bernie. I think that Elizabeth Warren should stay in the primaries for as long as possible. I disagree with Jordan a little bit. Jordan tends to think that she should drop out if she gets way behind immediately. I think she should stay because she pulls the conversation to the left, and that legitimizes Bernie a little more instead of making him seem like the kooky guy that's far out. But then again, that's just appealing to centrists, so that really doesn't. I guess that argument kind of beats itself, but I still like the conversation being pulled left. I think it's worth it. But we'll see. We will see. We'll see how Kamala Harris's team reacts to this piece in The Intercept. It came out Sunday morning, so I imagine it'll be buzzing all over the news cycle the next 2 days. I don't see CNN covering it. I don't see. Maybe MSNBC might talk about it if there's enough pressure. I'm pretty sure TYT is going to cover it today. But outside of, like, I'm pretty sure we're the first ones. I'm pretty sure we're the first ones to cover it. Like, the first. So yeah, that's the Kamala Harris story. That's the gerrymandering story. Like, make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, become a member to Status Quo. I actually have an appointment in like 6 minutes, so I'm gonna get out of here. Jordan's getting ready to come on in a few minutes. Thank you guys so much for becoming members, for commenting, subscribing, liking, sharing. Appreciate you for doing all that. I'm not able to do this if it wasn't for y'all. As we know, journalists, real journalists like I like to think of myself as, like Jordan, Ty, Jen, folks like us, we don't get to do this stuff unless you guys support us. It really is based 100% on y'all support. For the last year, I've had my degree for a year, and this is outside of a couple of freelance gigs that did not pay much. This is pretty much what I've got to do, and I really am passionate about bringing these stories to you, about getting in the field. I want to get in the field and cover the stuff that the mainstream media won't cover. I want to get out of the studio and cover the stuff the mainstream media will not cover. So yeah, make sure you smash that like button, share, subscribe. Jordan will be on in a little bit, and catch you guys later.